Let's be honest, nobody enjoys a good dose of hatred. It's a feeling that can turn even the most pleasant of environments into a battleground of emotions. It's like finding a dead rat in your pantry, unpleasant, unwelcome, and you can't help but wonder how it got there in the first place. The shock, the disgust, the immediate need to get rid of it. These are all reactions we have when confronted with something so vile. But hate, much like that unfortunate rodent, is a persistent pest. It doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It festers, it grows, and it finds ways to survive even in the most inhospitable conditions. It lingers in the shadows of society, occasionally rearing its ugly head to wreak havoc. It can be subtle, like a whisper in the dark, or it can be overt, like a shout in a crowded room. Understanding this complex emotion, why it exists and how it festers, is crucial. Hate is not a simple, one-dimensional feeling. It is layered, multifaceted, and often deeply rooted in personal and collective histories. It's not about excusing hateful actions, but rather about equipping ourselves with the knowledge to combat them. By understanding the origins and triggers of hate, we can develop strategies to counteract it effectively. Think of it like studying your enemy. The better you understand them, the better prepared you are to defeat them. Knowledge is power, and in the battle against hate, it is our most potent weapon. This isn't just about lofty ideals like world peace, though wouldn't that be nice? It's about creating environments where understanding and empathy can flourish. It's about fostering healthier communities, safer schools, and online spaces where people aren't afraid to voice their opinions. It's about building a world where differences are celebrated rather than condemned. So, let's unpack this Pandora's box of an emotion and see what makes hate tick. By dissecting its components, we can better understand how to dismantle it. We can learn to recognize the signs early, intervene before it spreads, and create a culture that prioritizes compassion over contempt. Imagine a world where instead of letting hate divide us, we use it as a catalyst for meaningful conversations and positive change. Where we confront our biases, challenge our prejudices, and work together to build a more inclusive society. Education and awareness are key. By teaching the next generation about the dangers of hate and the importance of empathy, we can pave the way for a brighter, more harmonious future. Breaking the chains of hate is not an easy task, but it is a necessary one. It requires effort, dedication, and a collective will to make a difference. Together, we can turn the tide. We can transform the unwelcome guest of hate into an opportunity for growth, understanding, and unity. Let's take the first step towards a world where love and acceptance reign supreme. Believe it or not, that lump of grey matter we call the brain might be partly responsible for our hate problem. It's fascinating to think that something so complex and powerful can also be the root of such a primal issue. See, evolutionarily speaking, fear and suspicion were essential for survival. In the harsh and unpredictable environments our ancestors lived in, being cautious and wary of potential threats was a matter of life and death. Early humans who were quick to distrust strangers, especially those who looked, sounded, or smelled different, were more likely to avoid danger and pass on their genes. This instinctive wariness helped them navigate a world filled with predators and rival tribes. Fast forward to the 21st century, and we're still walking around with that same hardware. Our brains have evolved remarkably little in the grand scheme of things, and many of those ancient survival mechanisms are still very much a part of us. Our brains haven't quite caught up with the fact that we're not constantly fending off saber-toothed tigers. The threats we face today are vastly different, yet our brains still react in ways that were suited for a much more dangerous world. So, we're left with this primal instinct to fear the other, which can easily morph into prejudice and, you guessed it, hate. This fear of the unknown or the different is deeply embedded in our psyche, often surfacing in ways that are harmful and irrational. Of course, our brains aren't solely to blame. We have the capacity for reason, empathy, and understanding. We can choose to rise above these base instincts. We're not just slaves to our amygdala. The amygdala, a small almond-shaped cluster of nuclei deep within the brain, plays a key role in processing emotions like fear. But we also have the prefrontal cortex, which helps us think critically and make rational decisions. But understanding this evolutionary baggage helps explain why fear-mongering and divisive rhetoric are so effective. When someone taps into these deep-seated fears, it can trigger a powerful, almost automatic response. Politicians and media outlets know how to push our buttons, tapping into those deep-seated fears to manipulate and control. They use sensationalism and scare tactics to keep us on edge, knowing that a fearful populace is easier to influence. It's cynical, it's manipulative, and it's surprisingly effective. By understanding the roots of our fears, we can start to recognize when we're being manipulated and take steps to counteract it. We can strive to be more mindful, more compassionate, and more aware of the ways in which our ancient brains are being exploited in the modern world. Ultimately, while our caveman brains may present modern problems, they also hold the key to overcoming them. By leveraging our capacity for empathy, critical thinking, and self-awareness, we can rise above our primal instincts and build a more understanding and inclusive society. It's a challenging journey, but one that is essential for our collective progress. By acknowledging our evolutionary past, we can better navigate our present and shape a future where fear and hate are no longer the driving forces in our lives. Let's be clear. Hate might be a human emotion, but it thrives in the fertile soil of societal structures. These structures, built over centuries, have deep roots in our collective psyche, often nourished by fear and ignorance. Think of it like this. Our brains might provide the kindling, but society often provides the gasoline and the match. The sparks of hate are ignited by societal influences, which can turn a small ember into a raging inferno. Take social identity theory, for example. This theory delves into how we categorize ourselves and others into groups, shaping our identities and perceptions. This psychological concept suggests that we define ourselves by the groups we belong to, our nationality, religion, even our favorite sports team. These affiliations give us a sense of belonging and identity, but they also create boundaries. While this can foster a sense of belonging and community, it can also lead to in-group bias, where we favor our own group and view others with suspicion or even hostility. This bias can be the breeding ground for prejudice and discrimination. Then there's the role of culture. Culture is the lens through which we view the world, shaping our beliefs, values, and behaviors. Societies develop norms and values that dictate what's acceptable and what's not. These norms are passed down through generations, influencing how we interact with others and perceive different groups. Sometimes, these norms can be explicitly hateful, like discriminatory laws or social practices. These overt forms of hate are easy to identify and condemn, but they are just the tip of the iceberg. Other times, they can be more subtle, like implicit biases that we might not even be aware of. These biases are ingrained in our subconscious, affecting our decisions and interactions without us realizing it. And let's not forget the media. The media plays a crucial role in shaping public opinion and can either promote understanding or exacerbate divisions. From inflammatory news coverage to social media echo chambers, the ways in which information is presented and consumed can either fuel or extinguish the flames of hatred. In today's digital age, the rapid spread of information means that hate can be amplified quickly, reaching a global audience in seconds. Historical events also show us how society's role in perpetuating hate has had devastating consequences. From genocides to systemic racism, the impact of societal hate is profound and far-reaching. However, society also has the power to combat hate. Education and awareness campaigns can challenge prejudices and promote inclusivity. By fostering empathy and understanding, we can create a more tolerant and compassionate world. Community initiatives that promote unity and collaboration can also play a significant role. When people come together to address common issues, it breaks down barriers and builds bridges between different groups. Ultimately, it's a collective responsibility. Each of us has a role to play in challenging hate and promoting a more inclusive society. By standing up against hate in all its forms, we can create a better future for everyone. The journey towards a hate-free society is long and challenging, but it's a journey worth taking. By embracing diversity and inclusion, we can build a society where everyone feels valued and respected. In the end, society's role in the hate game is significant, but so is its potential to shape a future filled with hope and unity. Together, we can turn the tide and create a world where hate has no place. Sadly, history is littered with examples of hate metastasizing into something far more sinister. The Holocaust, the Rwandan Genocide, the Armenian Genocide. These horrific events serve as stark reminders of what happens when hatred is allowed to fester and grow unchecked. These weren't isolated incidents of individual prejudice. They were systematic campaigns of dehumanization and violence, fueled by propaganda, fear, and the scapegoating of entire groups of people. The perpetrators weren't born monsters. They were ordinary people, caught in a web of hate that twisted their morality and justified the unthinkable. And before we pat ourselves on the back and assume we've evolved past such barbarity, let's not forget that xenophobia, racism, and religious intolerance are alive and well in the 21st century. From the rise of nationalist movements to the persistence of hate crimes, the ghosts of history are still very much with us.